Can an injured quarterback ruin an entire season? The Commanders are in the eye of the storm, and today's news is going to shake your burgundy and gold world. We have an injury that has the whole organization in panic, a comeback nobody saw coming, and a promotion that could change the attack. If you're a fan of the Commanders, you need to hear every word of this video because what's happening right now will define our immediate future. Stay until the end because the last news will blow your mind. Like if you bleed burgundy and gold, and subscribe because you won't find this info anywhere else. Folks, let's get straight to the point because what I'm going to tell you will have you more nervous than Dan Snyder at an NFL meeting. Jaden Daniels, our star quarterback, our savior, our golden hope, is injured and has missed 2 consecutive days of practice. We're talking about a knee injury he suffered against Green Bay, and the situation is more serious than the organization wants to admit publicly. Let me tell you something, and I say this with all the honesty in the world. When a rookie quarterback like Daniels misses practice for the 2nd day in a row, it's not just protocol precaution. Dan Quinn is being extremely careful with his words in press conferences, but folks, we need to read between the lines because that's where the real truth is. The coach literally said that Jaden needs to be absolutely himself to play against Las Vegas this Sunday. And that's the key to this whole problem that has us all on edge. You know what that phrase means in football language? It means Daniel's ability to run is seriously compromised. His mobility, that magical thing that makes this guy special, is what's had us dreaming of the playoffs for the first time in years. Let me explain why this injury has me so worried. Daniels isn't just a traditional pocket quarterback like Tom Brady or Peyton Manning in their best years. No, folks. Jaden is a dual-threat quarterback, a player whose ability to escape the pocket, extend plays with his legs, convert third and long by running, makes our offense work completely differently. If he can't pivot correctly, if he can't change direction with his characteristic agility, if he can't escape the pocket when protection breaks down, then he simply isn't the same quarterback who's enamored us in these early weeks of the season. It's like having a Ferrari with a damaged engine. Technically, it's still a car, but it's lost everything that makes it special. Now, I ask you something that keeps me up at night. Is it worth risking the future of our franchise for a single game against Las Vegas? Because that's exactly the decision Dan Quinn and the entire organization face right now. It's a decision that could define not only this season, but potentially the coming years of this team. Marcus Mariota is ready to take the helm, and though I deeply respect his experience and professionalism, deep down we all know it's not the same as having Jaden Daniels back there. Mariota is a competent veteran, a complete professional, but he doesn't have that spark, that youthful energy, that ability to create something from nothing that characterizes our rookie. I truly believe this injury will define use more than any of us want to admit right now. If Daniels rushes back before he's fully healthy and gets a more serious injury, we'd be talking about a totally lost season, of falling back into that cycle of mediocrity we know so well. But if we decide to sit him out for caution and lose momentum in these crucial early season games, we could also be digging our own hole for another disappointing season. The reality we must face is that Mariota showed last year he can play at a respectable level when needed. His stats speak for themselves. Completed 77.3% of his passes, threw 4 touchdowns without a single interception, and even ran for a touchdown. Those are solid numbers for a backup quarterback. Numbers that show he can handle the responsibility. But folks, let's be brutally honest here, because honesty is what characterizes us on this channel. Mariota isn't Jaden Daniels. He doesn't have that ability to create magic when everything is falling apart. He doesn't have the speed to escape impossible situations. He doesn't have that youthful confidence that makes receivers run extra routes because they know he can find them. This situation brings back painful memories, flashbacks I don't want to have but are inevitable. It reminds me exactly when Robert Griffin III got injured in those playoffs against Seattle, when the whole organization made a terrible decision that day that changed the franchise's course forever. We all know how that story ended. We all remember the consequences of rushing back an injured quarterback. Mike Shanahan decided to keep RGI in the game when he clearly couldn't. Plan his leg properly when it was obvious to anyone watching that something was wrong. The result was a much more severe injury that not only ended that playoff season, but essentially ended the career of one of the most promising quarterbacks we'd had in decades. We cannot, must not, will not make the same mistakes of the past. This organization has learned a lot since then, changed its philosophy, brought in new people with different mindsets. But the temptation to take shortcuts is always there, especially when you feel like you have a real chance to do something special. Friday is going to be absolutely crucial in determining the direction of our season. If Daniels can't practice tomorrow, Friday, if he can't show he can make all those moves Dan Quinn mentioned, the speed, the pivoting, the change of direction, the ability to stop on a dime, then we can start mentally preparing to see Marcus Mariota as our starter against Las Vegas this Sunday. That, dear fans who have been with me through thick and thin, completely changes our expectations, not just for this weekend, but for the coming weeks while Daniels fully recovers. We're talking about a fundamental shift in our team's identity, how we play, what we can expect from each offensive drive. I tell you this with all the wisdom given to me by years of following this team, living through its highs and lows, celebrating its triumphs, and suffering its defeats. I'd much rather have Jaden Daniels fully healthy for the next 15 games of the season than risk him for a single week against a Las Vegas team that frankly should not be our biggest challenge of the year. Because if there's one thing I've learned following this team for so many years, if there's one thing all those seasons of frustration and hope have taught me, it's that rushed decisions made out of desperation or media pressure, have cost us much more than any individual victory could be worth. But the bad news doesn't end there, folks. And now let's go with something that has me completely torn emotionally. Something that is the perfect representation of what it means to be a Washington Commanders fan in 2025. Dietrich Wise Jr., one of our star free agent signings, the player who was supposed to give that constant pressure on the quarterback that we so desperately needed, tore his quadriceps against Green Bay and is officially out for the rest of the season. A devastating injury that leaves us with a gigantic hole in our defensive line. A void that will be virtually impossible to fill with the same level of production we expected from Wise. We're talking about a player who came to Washington with impressive credentials, with years of experience in New England, where he learned from the best, where he developed that winning mentality that we need so much in this organization. Wise was an absolutely fundamental piece in Dan Quinn's defensive plans for this season. He wasn't just another player in the rotation. He wasn't just additional depth. He was the kind of veteran who was supposed to stabilize our defensive line, who was going to give veteran presence and constant pressure to the opposing quarterback, who was going to be the silent leader guiding young players in tough moments. Now we have to replace all that experience, all that production, all that presence with players who, to be completely honest, don't remotely give me the same confidence. We're talking about a loss that goes beyond stats, beyond sacks or pressures. We're losing leadership. We're losing experience in crucial moments. We're losing that calm knowing we have someone reliable in a key position. But here comes the part that has me completely emotionally confused, which is why I said at the start that this news has me divided. The organization reacted with impressive speed and brought back a name I didn't expect to hear in 2025. Preston Smith is officially back in Washington after almost 5 years of absence. Yes, you heard right, folks. Preston Smith, the same Preston Smith we knew and saw grow with this jersey, is back home after his adventure in Green Bay and his brief stint in Pittsburgh. It's like seeing an ex come back after years. There's nostalgia, there are questions, there's hope. But there's also a lot of uncertainty about whether things can be the same again. Do you remember Preston perfectly? Of course you do. He was our second-round pick in the 2015 draft. In those years when we still believed we could find diamonds in the rough in the early rounds. He played 4 solid seasons with us, racking up 24.5 sacks before deciding to leave for Green Bay in search of more money and supposedly better winning opportunities. In 2019, he had his best professional season with 12 sacks for the Packers, showing that the talent was always there, that maybe he just needed the right system or the proper motivation to reach his full potential. Since then, although the numbers haven't been as spectacular, he's maintained a respectable level as a reliable veteran who can contribute in different ways. But now I ask you the million-dollar question. Is this the same Preston Smith we knew and said goodbye to 5 years ago? Folks, 5 full years have passed in the NFL, which in terms of professional American football is practically an eternity. The player who left Washington in 2019 was 26 years old, in the prime of his career, with all the energy and ambition in the world. Now he's 31, has gone through different systems, faced different challenges, lived experiences that inevitably change a person. In NFL football, those years not only feel like decades, but they can also literally be the difference between a player in their prime and one who is starting to decline. Bodies wear down, speed decreases, recovery capacity reduces. It's the brutal reality of this sport we love so much, but which is ruthless with the passage of time. I have to be honest with you because honesty is what unites us in this community. I think this acquisition is more about nostalgia and feelings than real strategic need. Yes, Preston knows the organization better than anyone. Yes, he has invaluable experience in pressure situations. Yes, he can be a veteran guiding young players. But the fundamental question we must ask ourselves is, can he really fill the specific void left by Dietrich Wise Jr.? My doubts are huge. The difference between what Wise could bring and what Preston can offer in 2025 is significant. Wise arrived in his prime, hungry to prove himself, with the energy to be a differential factor. Preston arrives after years of ups and downs, after being traded by Pittsburgh, after not having the expected impact in recent years. Reality we must face is that it's going to take a completely collective effort to compensate for the loss of Wise. There isn't a single person who can replace what he represented for this defense. Jalen Holmes was promoted from the practice squad, which is a sign that the organization is willing to give opportunities to young players with potential, but without proven experience in high-pressure situations. We have Javonte Jean-Baptiste, who is a 7th-round pick from last year and who has shown flashes of talent so far, but nothing consistent. He is the type of player who can surprise or completely disappear when the pressure increases. We also have Jacob Martin, who has been solid as a backup, but may now have to take on a much more prominent role than originally planned. An extremely strange mix of inexperienced youth, declining veteran presence, and blind hope that somehow it's all going to work out. It's not exactly the recipe any defensive coordinator would want to face an entire NFL season. Dan Quinn is going to have to prove why he was brought here, why we trust his ability to develop creative schemes that maximize the available talent. He's going to have to be extraordinarily creative with his formations, rotations, with how he uses every available player. Maybe we'll see more snaps of Johnny Newton and Javon Kinlaw playing on the edge, positions that aren't natural for them, but can work in specific situations. Maybe Jacob Martin switches to the opposite side of the line, creating a completely different formation than we had planned for this season. What I can guarantee is that against Las Vegas this Sunday, we will see a very different defensive scheme than what we had imagined when the season began just 2 weeks ago. Preston Smith isn't going to solve all our problems overnight, irrespective of how much nostalgia we have for the old days. He has to learn Quinn's defensive system from scratch, develop instant chemistry with teammates he doesn't know, prove he still has enough fuel in the tank to be effective at 31 years old. That's a lot to ask for someone who literally arrived this week. The pressure on Preston will be immense, not only because of production expectations, but because of the entire emotional burden his return carries. Fans will want to see the 2019 Preston Smith, but the reality is that player no longer exists. Now we have to accept and work with the 2025 version of Preston Smith, with all his limitations and possibilities. I tell you this with all the experience of having seen similar returns over the years. Celebrate Preston's return for what it represents sentimentally, for the emotional connection, for the good memories. But don't expect sporting miracles. The loss of Dietrich Wise Jr. is absolutely devastating to our defensive plans, and we will feel his absence in every game, in every third down situation, in every moment where we need crucial pressure on the quarterback. And to close with the day's news, we have something that may initially seem minor, but which I believe represents exactly the kind of smart move that distinguishes well-run organizations from those that consistently make mistakes. Chris Moore was officially promoted from the practice squad to the active roster after his impressive performance in Week 1 against the New York Giants. Let me put this in perspective so you understand why this promotion seems much more important to me than appearances suggest. Moore had exactly one opportunity against the Giants, one single pass thrown his way the entire game, and he capitalized on it spectacularly with a 34-yard reception that showcased not only his technical skills, but also his ability to execute under pressure at the precise moment. That reception wasn't a fluke, folks. It was the result of years of experience, knowing exactly how to position himself, how to create separation, how to secure the ball in high-speed situations. It was enough evidence for the entire organization to decide to give him a real opportunity to contribute consistently throughout the season. We're talking about a genuine 8-year veteran who has navigated the league as a complete professional. Houston Texans, Tennessee Titans, Arizona Cardinals, and now Washington Commanders. Each of those stops has taught him something different, given him unique experiences, shown him different ways to contribute to a professional football team. What really excites me about Chris Moore is his absolute versatility, that ability to adapt to any situation the game requires. He can play outside as a traditional receiver, stretching the field and creating deep pass opportunities. He can move to the slot to attack soft spots in complex defensive coverages. And he can also contribute significantly on special teams, especially in returns where his experience and speed can totally change field position. In a league where depth is absolutely crucial, where injuries can change the course of a season in a single play, having a player with this versatility is incredibly valuable. It's not just having another receiver on the roster, it's having a professional who can step in different situations and execute multiple responsibilities without special preparation. His career numbers aren't going to impress anyone who only looks at surface statistics. 139 receptions, 1,744 receiving yards, 1,169 return yards, and 11 total touchdowns in 8 career years. For the casual observer, they may seem modest, almost insignificant compared to the league's superstars. But here's the key many don't understand. We're not asking Chris Moore to be our number one receiver. We're not expecting him to replace Terry McLaurin or compete directly with Jahan Dotson for targets. We're asking for something much more specific and valuable, to be the reliable type of player who can step up in key moments, when least expected, and make exactly the play we need to change the momentum of a drive or an entire game. I truly believe this promotion comes at the absolutely perfect time in our season. With all the injuries we're facing, with all the uncertainty around key positions, we need all the depth possible, especially depth that comes with proven experience in pressure situations. Moore already showed in one play against the Giants that he can be reliable when needed, that he can execute when the lights are brightest, that he can contribute immediately without needing a long adjustment period. That instant reliability is exactly what you need when you're trying to maintain momentum in a season that can be special. Now, I ask you something that genuinely excites me. Can a player like Chris Moore be exactly the unexpected spark our offense needs? Because, folks, sometimes in football, the least expected players, those who fly under the radar, are precisely the ones who make the difference in absolutely crucial moments. Think about all the players throughout NFL history who weren't superstars, but who made legendary plays at perfect moments. Think about those receivers who maybe aren't in the Hall of Fame, but have specific catches that fans will remember forever. Chris Moore has exactly the profile to be that kind of player. The reality is our group of receivers desperately needs that next man up mentality that characterizes successful teams. Terry McLaurin is fantastic. Jahan Dotson has enormous potential. And the rest of the group has talent. But when opposing defenses focus specifically on neutralizing our main weapons, you need someone who can come out of nowhere and completely change the game's momentum with an unexpected play. Moore has exactly that veteran experience that can be absolutely invaluable in high-pressure situations. He's been through tough situations with different teams, played in multiple offensive systems, faced the league's best defenses, and more importantly, he knows exactly what it takes to survive and thrive in this competitive league. That experience isn't taught in any practice. It's not developed in any training camp. It's earned only through years of real experience with life-or-death sporting situations, with the constant pressure of having to prove your worth every week for 8 consecutive years. Additionally, there's something particularly smart about the timing of this promotion. The organization didn't wait until we had a crisis of injuries at the position to act. They saw an opportunity, saw that Moore could contribute immediately, and made the proactive decision to secure his availability before other situations forced him into desperate decisions. That speaks very well of the new mentality of this organization, of how they're planning for both the short and long term, of how they're trying to build real depth before needing it desperately. It's exactly the kind of move successful organizations make consistently: identify value, act quickly, and secure resources before competition intensifies. Chris Moore also represents something symbolic for this season. The idea that opportunities can come from anywhere, that talent and preparation can meet opportunity at the perfect moment to create something special. His story is inspiring for any young player on the roster waiting for their moment, working hard in practice, hoping for their chance to shine. Folks, these 3 pieces of news show us the rawest and most exciting reality of professional football. An injury can change an entire season in an instant. A nostalgic acquisition can bring hope mixed with uncertainty. And a seemingly minor promotion can open completely new possibilities that no one had considered. You think Jaden Daniels should risk his long-term health to play injured against Las Vegas this Sunday? Can Preston Smith really recapture the magic of his best years and help our defense after so many years of absence? Will Chris Moore be the surprise no one expects in our offense? The player who shows up in crucial moments to change the course of important games? I urgently need you to leave your most honest opinions in the comments, because this conversation is just beginning, and I want to know exactly what you think about each of these situations. This community that we've built together is much more than just a YouTube channel about football. We're a true burgundy and gold family, living and suffering with every play, every decision, every victory, and every defeat of our beloved Washington Commanders. If you found this content valuable, if you feel you'll always find the most complete information here, the most honest analysis, and the most direct opinions about our team, then I need you to subscribe right now and turn on that notification bell. The coming weeks will be absolutely filled with crucial decisions, moments that could define our season. And I want you to be with me to analyze every development in real time. And always remember, hail to the Commanders.